whenever I listen back to something that I do, it just makes me feel weird.
Under the bright, unrelenting glow of the stage lights, a shy teenage girl once stood trembling, heart racing, fingers shaking, her mind swimming in doubt. She was small, fragile even, but within her lived something enormous, something untamed. The moment the music began, everything changed. What came out of her throat wasn't the sound of fear or hesitation. It was fire, raw, gritty, full of rebellion. The world had never seen anyone quite like her. Her name was Courtney Hadwin. This is the story of the girl who went from a nervous school talent show performer to an international phenomenon overnight. It's a story of applause, heartbreak, and resurrection. A journey that proves talent can lift a person to the stars, but it's courage that keeps them there. Courtney Hadwin was born in July 2004 in the quiet town of Heselden, England, a place better known for its coal mining history than for rock prodigies. From the beginning, she seemed out of place in the best way possible. She wasn't the loudest or the most confident child in the room. She preferred corners, crayons, and the safe rhythm of her own humming. At home, she'd sing to herself when no one was listening, tiny murmurs that slowly grew into echoes of the legends she discovered through her father's old records, Janis Joplin, Etta James, Aretha Franklin. Those voices didn't sound pretty, they sounded powerful. They bled emotion. They made mistakes and turned them into masterpieces. To Courtney, that imperfection was freedom. At school, though, her gift was a secret. She was painfully shy. Teachers noticed her withdrawing into herself, and classmates saw her as the quiet girl who avoided eye contact. But that same girl, when alone in her bedroom, would perform in front of her mirror as if she were born for it. She wasn't chasing fame, she was chasing feeling. Her parents didn't realize just how much music meant to her until one evening. While cleaning up, they heard a voice from behind a closed door. It was raw, unfiltered, and startlingly mature. Her father stopped mid-step, and her mother's eyes widened. That wasn't the voice of a 12-year-old. It was something far older, something timeless. When Courtney auditioned for America's Got Talent in 2018, she was only 13 years old. The stage was huge, the cameras merciless. You could almost see the terror in her hands as she held the microphone. Simon Cowell smiled politely, asking her name, her age, what song she'd sing. Courtney answered softly, barely audible. The audience shifted in their seats. Few expected much. But then the music started. Tina Turner's Hard to Handle blared through the speakers, and suddenly the shy British girl disappeared. What replaced her was a storm. Fierce, uncontainable, electrifying. Her raspy, soulful voice exploded through the room with a confidence that seemed possessed by the spirits of rock and blues. People gasped. The judges' jaws dropped. Simon Cowell's smirk melted into disbelief. Howie Mandel slammed the golden buzzer, showering her in confetti as the crowd erupted into applause. In seconds, Courtney Hadwin went from an unknown teen to a viral sensation. Overnight, she became the reincarnation of Janis Joplin, the girl with the old soul, the British rock angel. What no one saw, though, was the cost of that moment. Courtney, still a teenager, was thrown into a whirlwind she hadn't prepared for. Fame came with love, but also scrutiny, endless interviews, press photos, internet critics dissecting her every gesture. Some called her voice unrefined, others accused her of imitating old legends too closely. For a child still discovering who she was, that attention was both intoxicating and terrifying. Behind the cheers and flashing lights, the pressure built quietly. Courtney began performing on talk shows, touring, recording, flying across oceans, all while trying to keep up with school and her own fragile confidence. Her father traveled with her, trying to shield her from the chaos. Yet the spotlight is a hungry thing. It feeds on your privacy, your rest, even your peace. Nights blurred together. Applause replaced silence. When you're 14, that's too much power, too much noise. But Courtney never stopped singing. On stage, she was free. Each note she belted out was a rebellion against fear, a defiant shout from a girl who once couldn't speak up in class. Her voice carried something older than her years, pain, defiance, joy. Then Just when everything seemed unstoppable, fate decided otherwise. It was raining that evening, cold, merciless rain that blurred headlights and turned roads into glass. Courtney was returning from a charity event, exhausted but elated. She'd just finished singing to raise funds for children's hospitals, a cause close to her heart. The bus hummed along the highway, full of laughter and sleepy chatter from her small team. Then screeching tires, a flash of metal, a crash that tore through the night. The world went black. When Courtney woke up in a hospital bed hours later, her body was wrapped in pain. Her leg was fractured, ribs bruised, and the doctors whispered words no singer wants to hear. Possible vocal cord trauma. The same voice that had carried her from a small town to global fame might never sound the same again. She didn't cry immediately. Shock has its own silence. But when reality hit, it hit hard. For months, she couldn't perform. She couldn't even hum without pain. For someone whose identity lived in sound, that silence felt like erasure. She wondered if the world would forget her. She wondered if the golden buzzer had been her first and last triumph. Rehabilitation wasn't glamorous. It was slow, frustrating, and lonely. Every day was a small war, physical therapy for her leg, breathing exercises for her voice, endless patience. But if fame had been an accident, determination wasn't. Courtney threw herself into recovery with the same intensity she once gave to her performances. Her family stayed by her side. Some days she'd hum single notes, others she'd write down lyrics she couldn't yet sing. "If I can't perform," she once said, "I'll write what I feel." And that's what she did. Out of the silence came words, raw, personal lyrics about loss, fear, and healing. Music became therapy. In those quiet nights of pain and self-doubt, Courtney discovered something deeper than fame: resilience. When her voice finally began to return, it wasn't the same, but it was hers. Lower, huskier, more textured, as though her body had written her pain into her sound. She didn't try to chase perfection. She chased truth. Her comeback wasn't explosive. It was slow and graceful, like dawn breaking after a storm. She began performing at smaller venues, local benefit shows, intimate gigs where she could test her limits. The audience wasn't thousands anymore. Sometimes it was dozens. But those few people who heard her knew. This wasn't a comeback, it was a transformation. She started uploading stripped-down covers, Fleetwood Mac, Amy Winehouse, even her own songs. The rawness resonated with fans who'd followed her since her AGT days. They saw a young woman growing up in front of their eyes, not a child star-chasing fame, but an artist rebuilding herself. Courtney's first independent EP followed, a collection of songs written during her recovery. The lyrics spoke of silence, survival, and starting again. Critics called it hauntingly honest. Fans called it a love letter to pain. Courtney simply called it healing. Fame had taught her that the world loves noise, but wisdom taught her that power lives in quiet moments too. Courtney began speaking about mental health and the pressure young performers face. She didn't glamorize her story. She told it with scars visible. Her recovery inspired her to give back. She started mentoring local teens, teaching them not just how to sing, but how to protect their sense of self in an industry that can devour it. When she performed again on national television, her introduction wasn't about viral fame, it was about survival. Gone was the timid 13-year-old girl. In her place stood a woman who had learned what it meant to lose everything and still find herself again. Many people still describe Courtney as the reincarnation of Janis Joplin. It's easy to make that comparison, same raw tone, same fearless stage presence. But to understand her fully, you have to see past imitation. Courtney isn't chasing ghosts, she's carving her own legend. Every artist who endures leaves a piece of their pain behind as proof of their journey. Courtney's story isn't about fame, it's about what it takes to stand back up after life silences you. Her voice today carries the echoes of every dark night, every whispered doubt, every tear shed when no one was watching. And maybe that's why people still listen, not because she's flawless, but because she's real. There's something quietly revolutionary about Courtney Hadwin. She represents an idea that feels almost lost in modern celebrity culture, that authenticity still matters. She doesn't lip-sync her struggles. She doesn't filter her journey to fit an algorithm. She lives it messy and magnificent. If you look closely at her performances now, you'll see that her confidence doesn't come from fame, it comes from survival. The stage is no longer a test, it's a homecoming. Courtney's journey isn't over. She's still writing, still performing, still redefining what her music means. But one truth remains constant. She turned her pain into power, her silence into sound, and her tragedy into triumph. From a quiet girl in Heselden to a global name and back again, Courtney Hadwin has proven something profound. Greatness isn't about avoiding failure. It's about learning to sing through it. If this kind of story touches your heart, if you're someone who cares about truth, responsibility, and speaking up for the voiceless, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone who should hear it. Let's get started.